How many stories end not because there was no love, but because it sounded too quiet? We're afraid of words, afraid to seem weak, afraid that we won't be heard, and we stay silent. But it's exactly this silence that kills what we want to preserve. If you love someone, say it. Not in a whisper, not through hints, not someday. Say it now. Say it so it can be heard, so it becomes impossible to forget. Because it's words that make love alive, and silence turns it into a shadow. She didn't leave because she stopped loving. She left because he never once said that he loved her. One click and you're with us together until we hit our first 1,000. He loved her, but not loudly, not clearly, not so she could hear it through the silence. He thought that love was obvious, that she would feel it without words, without touch, without fire. He believed that love didn't need to be spoken, that the words, "I love you," would cheapen it, that feelings were stronger when they were hidden. So he hid them, guarded them, locked them in his chest like a secret that no one could steal. But what isn't said, can't be heard, and what can't be heard, seems like it doesn't exist. She would look at him across the dinner table. Her eyes begged for something. Just one phrase, one confirmation that she wasn't just empty space beside him. But he stayed silent, smiled, nodded, and between them, silence grew. Not like a pause, not like peace, but like distance. Love rarely dies from storms, rarely crumbles from screaming. It dies quietly, in things left unsaid, in emptiness, in moments where one word could have saved everything, but it was never spoken. She waited, for months, for years, waited for him to hold her not because she asked, but on his own. Waited for him to say what she knew, but without which her heart felt empty. But silence turned out to be louder than love. And every day it whispered to her, "You're alone." Even here, he was sure that she understood. That his presence was enough. That care, work, routine, these were proof. But she didn't want routine. She wanted to be seen. She wanted her name to mean warmth, not just daily life. He believed that love lived in actions. And that's true. But words are fire. And without fire, even the strongest house becomes cold. There were nights when she cried beside him, soundlessly, turned away but not far, leaving space for him to reach out. But he didn't reach out. She would whisper, "Do you love me?" And he would laugh quietly, as if the question was foolish, as if the answer was obvious. But she wasn't asking about logic. She was asking about life, about breath, about words that make love real. And one day, she stopped asking. Because there's nothing more humiliating than begging for what should be given freely. He didn't understand right away. He thought everything was fine between them. That relationships sometimes become quieter. That fire doesn't always blaze, sometimes it smolders. But her fire wasn't smoldering. It was going out. She stopped waiting for his words. Stopped looking at him across the dinner table. Stopped crying in the dark. Because tears are hope. And when hope dies, eyes become dry. She packed her things in silence. The same silence in which he loved her. And when she left, she didn't slam the door. She closed it quietly. Because sometimes the end isn't an explosion. Sometimes the end is silence finally answering silence. He loved her, but not loudly, not so she could hear, not so she would believe, not so she would stay. And in the end, only that mattered. He understood too late, too quietly, too inside himself. She stood at the door, with a suitcase, in her coat, eyes dry, lips trembling, and silence, like a wall between them. He wanted to say it. Thousands of words, all the ones he had kept inside for years. "I love you, don't go, you're everything I have." But his lips wouldn't obey. His tongue became heavy as stone. And he stayed silent again. She looked one last time, and understood, there was nothing left to wait for. Because even at the moment of goodbye, he couldn't do it. He loved her, but couldn't say it in a way that would stop her. That would bring her back. That would leave him not with empty hands, but with her. She left quietly. The door closed softly, without a slam, without sound, only the echo of footsteps in the hallway. And then, for the first time, he heard his own silence. It was deafening. It pounded in his ears louder than screaming. It rang in the empty apartment like a verdict. He rushed to his phone. Typed, "I love you. I always loved you," but his finger froze over the send button. What was the point? She wasn't reading anymore. She wasn't waiting anymore. She didn't believe anymore. And in that moment he understood something terrible. The love he had so carefully kept inside. It didn't die because it ended. It died because it was never spoken. Love doesn't live in silence. It dies in it. And he was left with only an empty room. And 1,000 words that no one was left to say them to. After she left, the house became foreign. The walls seemed to close in. The air became thick, heavy. And the silence, so loud it cut his ears. He walked through the rooms, and every object spoke of her. A mug in the kitchen. A scarf on the back of a chair. A photo on the shelf where they're smiling, still believing that words weren't needed. He tried to work, sat at his laptop, stared at the screen. But the letters blurred, and only one thing appeared before his eyes, her face in the doorway. Her look, that last one, without tears, without hysteria. Too calm, too final. He would pick up his phone, reread old text conversations. There, hundreds of her messages. "Where are you? Did you miss me? Tell me everything will be okay." And in response, his dry, "Yes. I'll be home soon." Of course. Not one spark. Not one confession. Not one "I love you" that could have been an anchor. He scrolled further. And realized, their story was a chronicle of his silence. Her cry, always soft, always asking. And his silence, always killing. He sat on the bed, covered his face with his hands. And for the first time in many years wanted to scream. Really scream. With words that had built up inside and were tearing him apart. "I loved you. I love you. I will always love you." But the words flew into emptiness. Bounced off the walls. And came back to him. Too late, too loud, when there was no one left to hear. He understood, silence doesn't forgive. It accumulates. It becomes a knife that cuts what's most important. And one day that knife remains only in his hands. With no possibility to fix anything. He went out into the city at night. Rain streamed down his face, mixing with tears. People walked by, strangers, hurrying. And he walked like an empty shell. Every silhouette reminded him of her. Every light in a window seemed like a chance he no longer had. And only one thing pounded in his head: if you love, say it. If you treasure, shout it. If you want to hold on, don't be silent. He understood this, but too late. Now all he had was silence. The very same silence he had used to kill her love, and which now was killing him. He sat in darkness, phone in his hand, message open. Words written, "I loved you. Always." But the send button remained untouched. Because the recipient no longer existed in his world. She lived somewhere beyond, in another reality, where silence had already said everything for him. He read these words over and over again. And each time felt them tearing him apart from inside. Because she had needed them then. Not now. Love without words is like a song without music. It exists, but you can't hear it. And over time, you stop feeling it. He remembered hundreds of moments. When he could have, when he should have, when everything depended on one thing, opening his mouth and speaking. "You're mine. I love you. You're my everything." But he thought, later. Tomorrow, after work, when there would be the right moment. But the moment never came. Because there are no right moments. There's only now, or never. He realized that silence isn't neutrality. It's a choice. And this choice killed everything he had. Now he spoke out loud. But walls are poor conversation partners. Now he whispered into his pillow. But pillows don't answer back. Now he confessed his love every night. But love didn't return. And then, in this darkness, he finally heard the voice he had always avoided, his own. The voice that said, "Silent love is love that doesn't exist." If you love, speak. Say it loudly. Say it now. Because tomorrow might not come. And then your words will stay inside you. And will burn you for the rest of your life.